So based on that, we established the principle within our fiqh that you have to read at least 3 ayat. Why 3 ayat? Because 3 ayat equal the Quran. If it's 1 ayah, it may not be the Quran. 2 ayahs, can be from the Quran, but it's not, you call it the Quran when it's actually 3 ayahs. Meaning the shortest surah is 3 ayahs, you call that a portion of the Quran. So we established that the minimum that you have to read in salah is 3 ayahs. So now we've read the entire Quran, and we found this one thing referring to recitation during the salah. So then we stop. Then we begin to open the books of fiqh, of hadith. And we open the books of hadith and we say, okay, now what does the hadith say about what you have to read in your salah? Does the hadith tell us anything more? And so we begin to look through the books of hadith, and we see that the Prophet ﷺ said, La salata illa bi fatihatil kitab. There is no salah except with Surah Fatiha. Meaning you have to read Surah Fatiha. So this is a sahih hadith. It's sahih. It's a sahih hadith. We don't doubt it's being sound. But because the Quran has come to us with tawatur, with 100% certainty, with so many chains of transmission that there is no way it can be doubted, and this hadith has only come to us from a single chain of transmission, then we take the Quran and give it precedence, and we take the hadith and make it secondary. Another way to look at it is, the Prophet ﷺ recited this ayah, فَقْرَؤُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ, to so many Sahaba, and then that subsequently got transmitted to so many other people that it was a dominant concept within the deen. Whereas this hadith was only told to one Sahabi, who then subsequently told it to one other Sahabi, who then or one other of the Tabi'een, who then subsequently told it to many people. So that came with a single line of transmission until that line expanded 2 or 3 generations later. So if the Prophet ﷺ wanted La salata illa bi fatihatil kitab to be established as farad, then he would have told everybody on so many occasions and made it common knowledge, like tawatur. It would have reached the level of tawatur. Based on this, we come up with the ruling of what you have to read according to the Hanafi madhab. These are the principles of the Hanafi madhab, how they derive law from the Quran and Hadith. And so what we say is, reciting at least 3 ayat in your every rak'ah is mandatory, because فَقْرَؤُوا مَا تَيَسَّرَ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ commands you to do so. And reciting Surah Fatiha is wajib. We cannot push it to the level of farad, because we don't have tawatur, but wajib in our classification means basically farad, it's a sound hadith, but we just don't have the level to push it to equal an ayah of the Quran. So we created one level below it and we call it wajib. In wajib you have to do it. If you leave it, you are punished. And in fact, if you leave it, your salah doesn't occur. But we don't have the ability to push it up to the level of the Quran. And so therefore, if somebody debates us with it and says, no, it's not farad, it's sunnah, that debate can exist. Whereas, if somebody says to you, there's no recitation at all in the salah, they leave the fold of Islam, because they're denying an ayah of the Quran. But if somebody tells you you don't have to recite Surah Fatiha in the Quran, they don't leave the fold of Islam, because they are only denying a hadith, and that hadith does not have tawatur. Okay? So there's room for debate in those areas. So it's a little bit weaker than the Quran, not because of the source. The Prophet ﷺ equals the Quran in source, but because of the fact that we received it only from a single chain of transmission, so we cannot equate that ayah with a verse of the Quran. Now there are other ahadith that reach the level of tawatur, and we're going to talk about it in detail when we come to wiping over the leather socks. So you keep these principles in your mind now and review them, and inshallah we're going to do a complete revision of what I just said in that particular topic. That's what we mean by farad and wajib. Below that there's a level of sunnah. In order to establish something as sunnah, you have to have a recommendation. Okay? A recommendation and a proof that is either strong or weak. If the proof is very strong, then it becomes sunnah mu'akkada. And if the proof is a little bit less in its degree of strength, then it becomes sunnah ghayr mu'akkada, or something called mustahab. So this is the classification of sunnah. Mubah means neutral. Mubah means neutral. And what that means is the Sharia is quiet about it. You come to me and you say, should I wear a gray vest or should I wear a dark blue vest? And I'll say, this is mubah, whichever one you prefer. In the case of white, of course, I'll say the Prophet ﷺ, he preferred white. And he said, that the white was his favorite color. And we know that from hadith, especially for those of you who sat in the sessions on Shama'il-Tirmidhi that we had last year. But if you come to me and you say, I'd like to know the ruling, should I buy a blue vest or a dark green vest? then I'll tell you, this is mubah. You have a choice with, which one you want to choose. It's neutral. The Sharia doesn't have a particular ruling here. Then you go in the opposite direction. You come to something called makruh, which is disliked. And for makruh, it's like the opposite of wajib and sunnah. Meaning, you have a proof, and that proof may be definite, it has its variations in its definiteness, and it's a recommendation that you avoid something. And so that becomes disliked, and haram is exactly opposite of farad. That you need a definite proof with tawatur, and you need a definite prohibition. It has to be telling you that you can't do this act, and that makes it haram. For example, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمُ الْمَيْتَةِ, right? And then the ayah continues. So the dead animals are haram upon you. So here Allah clearly states in the Quran, حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ. It has been made haram upon you. And then lists these things. So you have an ayah of the Quran, which has tawatur, and then on top of that, you have a definite prohibition, and so that makes it haram.